Hi everyone, welcome back to SWI channel. So for the longest time, one woman that I have disliked the most in the Bible will be Rebecca, and it's for obvious reasons. But as I begin to, study more and think about her role, I am beginning to see there are a few lessons that I could learn from her as a mom, and that's what we'll be discussing today. So, if you are interested to find out what motherhood lessons I can consider to have, to try to learn from Rebecca, then you need to keep watching to find out. Okay, so firstly, established Rebecca may not have been, straight up from a very Christian home, because we know for a fact that her brother Laban was not a Christian, yeah, because of course he worshipped idols and all that. But then the scripture talks about how Rebecca got pregnant through the prayer of her husband, and in the middle of the pregnancy, she was having struggles, right? Because she didn't understand what was going on in her belly. And so scripture tells us that she went to inquire of the Lord, right? And as believers, we know that when they say you went to inquire, when you inquire of the Lord, of course, it's prayers. So it was the scriptures clearly telling us that Rebecca was a deeply spiritual woman. And if you're somebody of faith and you know that when you are going through your life, you don't just wake up and go and inquire of the Lord of something when there's no existing relationship, right? So it's obvious that Rebecca was already used to talking to the Lord, was already used to asking him questions, was already used to communing with the Lord. And that's why when she was experiencing the difficulty she was experiencing in her pregnancy, it was easy for her to go and find out from the Lord, like, please, what is happening to me, right? And then we know how the story goes. And the Lord told that two nations are in your womb, the younger would serve the older. I normally would think that it was that information that maybe advised Rebecca's craftiness with regards to how she helped her son trick her other son. But I'm beginning to think that was not the case. So, anyway, before I deviate, firstly, I have mentioned she was a spiritual woman, she was prayerful. Yes, so it's very important as mothers that we are spiritual, that we are prayerful, right? So that's the first lesson. And secondly, um, Rebecca was a woman of discernment, right? Now, in reading through the scriptures again, let's say like the last verse of chapter 25 of Genesis, you would see that it was actually mentioned that Esau got married to two Hittite women, and these Hittite women were making the lives of Isaac and the life of Rebecca miserable. Yes, I was just thinking, how come I never saw this before? Because this information is coming before Rebecca helped to trick, her husband to bless her younger son. So we can already see that, there was just a lot going on in Esau's life that was not right. And Esau went to marry, outside the scope, if we can say that. Yeah, Esau went to marry Hittite women who were coming to make her life miserable. So it's more like natural for her to tilt her love towards Jacob. It may have been the right thing, but I mean, like, as a mom, I can understand. Even as a human being, even if you're not a mom, you can understand. It's easy for you to actually tilt towards the other person, that is not giving you trouble, right? But then, yes, so I would say that Rebecca was able to actually discern like the personalities of her son, discern the person that would maximize potentials that they have, right? Yes. So she was a woman of discernment. That is one thing. The second thing that I can say, as a mom, we can learn from her. It's very important that we observe our children and we are able to discern a lot of things from their giftings, from their behaviors, from a lot of things that they display as they are growing up, to know how to actually guide them in the right path. That's one lesson I think I can learn from Rebecca. Thirdly, Rebecca was an influential woman in the life of her children. It's one thing to actually be in a position to tell your children to do this, do something, and it's another thing for you to be able to actually convince them or see them actually do what you're advising them to do, right? So it's very clear that, she had some level of influence in the life of her son Jacob, and that's why when she came up with the idea to say, oh, I've heard your dad saying this to your elder brother, but do like this and do like this. Just obey me. And in as much as Jacob was a bit reluctant, but she was able to convince him to go ahead and do so. I think that as mothers, especially as Christian mothers and mothers of this new age, we should strive to have some level of positive influence on our children, and so that we are able to actually guide them in the right path in their lives. So she was a woman of influence in the life of her kids, and that's one lesson I am picking from Rebecca's life. The next point I want to talk about is her selflessness. Now, I know this may not sound appropriate or right, but it got to the point where Jacob had to tell the mother, what if I am caught in the act in this particular thing that we are trying to do? I mean, my father would move from blessing me to cursing me. And she went ahead to say, let the curse be upon me. That is the level of her selflessness. As at that point, Rebecca was not even thinking of herself anymore, right? She was bent on getting this blessing for her son. The son that she had discerned, was in a better position to actually receive these blessings, right? And she was ready to go all out. She was ready to sacrifice herself just to see that her son succeeds. Now, it may not be in the same kind of scenario. It may not get to the point of us asking curses to be upon us. But as mothers, we should be able to, to a large extent, be very sacrificial with our children. We should be able to deny ourselves some privileges, just so that we're able to provide for their needs that would make them have a better life, and have a better stand, in better future and the rest of it. So yes, Rebecca was extremely sacrificial. And it's a lesson that I think we can learn from her. Yeah, it's a lesson we can learn from her. The next point I would like to talk about is that Rebecca was, I would call it, she was very smart or business savvy. Yes, I can say that because, looking at the story, we see that when there was a need, right, there was availability of resources to take advantage of that situation. And what do I mean by this? She had heard what the husband has told Esau, and she came to Jacob and say, go to so, bring a goat, and I will prepare the meal that you will present to your dad. Now, relating it to, today, we can look at how that could have been us, having resources for rainy day, having reserve funds, having, investments that we can lean on or we can quickly just reach out to when there is an opportunity, and then we're able to maximize that opportunity because we have been smart enough to have such reserve or such savings for the future. So yeah, Rebecca was an all-rounder. So that's also another lesson that we can learn from her. And then finally, the last lesson I would say I am learning, like the opposite of it from Rebecca, would be like parental favoritism, right? Learning not to have, as a parent, in as much as our kids are different personalities, there are some that could be as emotionally supportive than the other, and maybe obedient than the other, and it's easy for us to tilt towards those ones. But we shouldn't, as parents, begin to, should I say, nurture sibling rivalry amongst our kids. We should nurture them in love, nurture them in mutual respect, and show love to them equally, not having pitching one child against the other. So that's parental favoritism aspect, which is something that I have been using to beef Rebecca for the longest time, is a point of lesson that I can pick from her and say, hey, as I'm raising my two boys, I'm not going to particularly, pick one over the other in with respect to different things, right? Or even make one to feel more loved than the other. That's not a good parenting thing to do. So, and I'm actually learning it from the example that Rebecca displayed. Yes, so she did the other part, the other one, but then I'm going to do the other one, the opposite of what she did, by not showing parental favoritism openly to my kids. So, yes, these are the lessons that I can say I am learning, because there are a lot of other things, of course, that I can still pick. Maybe when I read, that story again, I would see more things to glean from the life of Rebecca. So, over to you. What do you think? Are there other lessons that you can think we should learn from Rebecca? Please leave it in the comment section. And if you have watched this video to this point, can you, give it a thumbs up or subscribe to the channel, so that when we post more videos like this, you'll be one of the first to know. So thank you, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.